The morning sun never shines through, no matter all the things I do, things I do. Now all my life has been pleasure and pain, either one is fine, 'cause they feel the same, feel the same. I love the way you talk to me. 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 Just this once, give me my say. Don't interrupt, don't walk away. Just this once, like to be okay. And I don't know about you, but I can speak for me. My world is a happy place to be, place to be. I love the way you talk to me. 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 Just this once, give me my say. Don't interrupt, don't walk away. Just this once, like to be okay.
Good evening, everybody. You read that title just right. The final broadcast of this month is going to be the Naruto X Bible fan fiction I stated would be happening just the other day. Tomorrow I plan on upping the resolution to a full 720p. Which is currently it's at 648. But that's enough not exactly pussyfooting. This is a little less intense, more like a coochie stepping. Yeah, let's go with that. Enough coochie stepping around this. Let's get to the main point. I'm going to throw a little music on if that's quite all right. You know what? Aquatic ambience 10 hours. This is primarily so that I don't fall asleep while I'm doing this. I'm using the new 2020 mix of Jammin' Sam Miller's restored version of Aquatic Ambience. In case you hear this and decide, I want to listen to that on my own time. So let's bump that right down, just enough so that you can hear it. Yeah, bump that down in my headphones. Bump that up here. There we go. Tonight's reading is of Crucified by fanfiction.net user GU Hotel Kodai. The description reads, "This story is more of an old study I did where themes from the Bible can be found in television shows. Warning, contains death, descriptive gore, and religious themes. Read with caution." Author's note. This story was inspired by my mom and her teachings. She is a United Methodist pastor and has taught me to look at the world with different eyes. One of her most eye-opening things she said was that you can always find a reference to the Bible in most TV shows. This story involves crucifixion and other religious themes, also death, gore, and several other pieces that may not be suitable for the weak of stomach or those who are empathetic. Disclaimer, I do not own Naruto, nor any character of the anime/manga Naruto. I claim no rights to the Bible either, or the story of Jesus. In 2 parentheses on each side, I say it's a story because it was told by others for a long time, so the truth can be bent in the retelling of such a powerful tale. Crucified. 3 little crosses. He died. He rose from the grave, and he shall rise again. He was born to bring the world out of evil and into salvation. He died to be the eternal sacrificial lamb for our sins. He rose again to defy the grip death had over the world. He was the first, but he was not the last. 3 more little crosses. Naruto, Sakura screamed as she banged on the door. It was almost noon. Kakashi had arrived at the meeting point, yet the annoying blonde idiot hadn't. "Open this damn door now," she said. She had been bang on the door for 5 minutes by now. Even the neighbors heard her and were staring out their windows or doors apostrophe, wondering what was going on. Ever thought that he may be sick? Sasuke asked from beside the door. He was shooting the nosy neighbors' angry glares. He hated public displays like this. He could have at least contacted someone to tell us, Sakura said as she stopped banging on the door. Her hand was starting to hurt, and she was gently rubbing it to get the numbness out. Ever thought of trying the doorknob? Kakashi spoke up. He stood there just reading his book. He looked bored as always. Sakura sighed as she tried the knob. It was a stupid idea. Click. That worked. Sakura peeked her head in. Now peeked is spelled P-E-A-K-E-D. Peaked, as in like when you max out the volume on your microphone by shouting very loud. Her face scrunched at the look of the place, but what could she expect? Even her room was starting to look like a mess, with with all the missions they had been doing lately. Sasuke followed behind her, and Kakashi behind him, closing the door once in. Naruto! Sakura called out as she moved through the apartment, quickly locating his room. She turned and walked back. I'm not going into his room. Sakura blushed. She didn't care as it was Naruto, just the fact that it was a boy's room. Now, interestingly, right, the author has decided to use the apostrophe S correctly this time. I am proud of them, and I hope they improve. 3 little crosses. We're going into another Bible verse. Ready? On the last day of Passover, he took the bread, gave thanks, and said, "This is my body, given for you. Take, eat, in remembrance of me." He broke the bread and passed it to those with him. After the meal was finished, he took a cup, and in it poured red wine. Again he spoke, "This is my blood, spilled for you. For the forgiveness of your sins, take, drink, in remembrance of me." Kakashi walked up to Naruto's bedroom door. He raised his hand to knock, but stopped. An odd feeling of foreboding crept over him and made his stomach churn. Taking a deep breath through his mouth, he silently knocked. "Naruto, are you okay?" He waited until there was no answer. He knocked again and called out a little louder to his young subordinate. Still, there was no reply. "Just open the door and look," Sasuke coldly said. He was pissed, to say the least. He was loosing out on valuable training time, training he needed to defeat his older brother Itachi and make him pay for the sin of killing his family. "I'm just making sure he knows I'm coming in," Kakashi replied as he reached for the handle. As soon as he touched the cool metal, he remembered something. This next part is all in italics. "Kakashi-sensei, I have to tell you something," Naruto said, coming up to his teacher. Naruto wasn't smiling. He looked to be very serious, in fact. What is it, Naruto?" Kakashi looked over his ever-present book at the young boy. "In a few days, I won't arrive to training. Don't worry about me, please. Don't worry about what has happened to me. For where I am going, it's so others won't have to suffer. I'm going to take the sins of this village unto my own, and save this place," Naruto replied. "My body won't leave this village, but my spirit will fight for it against evil." Kakashi looked at his student, a little harder, not fully understanding, yet Naruto continued. 3 days after, I will return. I will rise again before ascending." Naruto stopped there and smiled up at Kakashi. "Please, take care of Sakura and Sasuke for me." Naruto then turned and ran back to his training, leaving behind a rather confused and stunned Kakashi. The rest of this part is not in italics. "Kakashi-sensei," Sakura called out. Kakashi jerked back from his thoughts to see Sakura waving her hand in front of his face. "Can we please get this over with? This place is kinda cold." Kakashi smiled and nodded at her before turning the knob and looking in. The sight inside made his stomach flip before slamming the door shut again. Turning to his students. "Sakura, go get Tsunade-sama, quickly. Sasuke, go find Jiraiya. He's most likely at the baths. Go." He yelled as students jumped and ran out of the building faster than Kakashi's ever seen. We will be arriving at another Bible passage now. The people who only a week before welcomed into the city with open arms and words of praise were now yelling at him. A chorus of voices rang out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" When the man they were asking refused, he sent him another, who claimed no right to the man's life. Thus he was sent again back. Again the people yelled out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" The man gave the people a choice. A known murder, not murderer, was brought out. The choice: a man who has committed no crimes against the people, a man who they once welcomed with open arms and praise, or a man who has slaughtered innocent children without a care. The people chose the murder. The man turned to the people and declared that he will let them do as they pleased, but that he washed his hands of the whole ordeal. Thus the blood that was already coming from the once welcomed man was washed from his hands, turning the water a yellow, rusty color. Kakashi waited until he was certain that his two students were far enough away from before opening the door and slipping into the room. He kept his eyes closed, not wanting to see the sight again. He shut the door behind him and turned to face it. Breathing deeply did nothing to steel his nerves. This is spelt S-T-E-A-L, not S-T-E-E-L. For the scent, spelt S-E-N-T, not S-C-E-N-T, was gut-wrenching. He closed his eyes and, in a wave of temporary strength, he turned around and stepped away from the door. Blood. That was the first thing he saw. It painted the floor as to which his sight was gazed. The wood of the floor barely noticed underneath the still wet liquid. He bit his lip as his gaze followed the spreading river to the wall. The sight there making him turn and close his eyes. Naruto. We are arriving at yet another Bible passage, almost a little too quickly. Does the author think I don't see what he's doing? Does he think I'm stupid? I know what he's doing. He just doesn't want to get to writing the good stuff yet. God, even when I have to write gore, I'm eager for that shit. It's the best part. That day, before the man was to be sent to jail, he was tortured, whipped with canes until he could barely feel his back. Then his torturers set the slightly red-tinged canes aside. They picked up a whip-like device. Now, whip-like is spelt as two separate words, not as the one word it is often spelled as, with a hyphen. Called a cat nine tails, not a cat o nine tails, cat-n'9-tails. Leather straps with bits of sharp metal and broken clay, even bone, tied to the ends. The first blow struck and tore flesh and muscle, causing blood to run to the stone floor. Splashed upon the stone column he was chained to. They whipped his back, his legs, his sides, and when there was no more flesh, they turned him over and continued until not an ounce of flesh didn't have a cut or blood running from it. the touchier were stopped, the man had to be alive for tomorrow anyways. Interesting creative decision to write touchier instead of torture. I'm going to assume this was some form of autocorrect and that this was written on a phone. Hang on, I'm peeping some shit. Here we go. Sorry, I'm having a nose moment. I have a very light headache. I'm not going to check how far along we are into this, because the journey is half the fun. Oh? It appears a friend of mine has made some sort of a Pokemon Black and White themed thing. I almost said Pokemon Black and White themed blowjob. What the fuck is wrong with me? I forgot to set this to loop. Let me fix that. There we go. There we go. Let's get back to reading. Kakashi turned his gaze back to the figure, who now hung from the red-painted wall, his head flung limply to face the ground, eyes still opened and glazed over, arms stretched out further than should be possible, kunai stuck in each wrist to ensure the figure did not fall. Blood dried already where it once ran so easily. The figure wore no cloth, but some torn bed sheets, now tainted red, to cover up what little dignity was left. The body was covered in cuts and bruises, not bruises, burses. Parts of the flesh peeled, P-E-A-L-E-D, away to reveal muscle and bone. Even the legs were torn up with lacerations, spelt, I believe that's correctly, and other markings. Let me actually fact check myself. Is lacerations spelled that way? Surprisingly, yes, that is how lacerations are spelled. The feet were also held to the wall. A single kunai to give little support was lodged below the feet. Several needles pierced the flesh of the feet to secure it to the wall. Shuriken with wires that crossed the body in certain places were also logged into the wall. Not lodged into the wall, logged into the wall. They're connected wirelessly. It doesn't say that, I'm only assuming. The fine wire cutting into the skin and causing more blood to flow than one could take. Behind the body was painted a blood-red structure, one Kakashi had seen in certain religious houses. A cross, also called a tree, mostly made of wood, except the metal nails to keep it together. Sometimes it was a real tree, according to one of the men Kakashi had asked on the subject. A Bible passage incoming. The once welcomed, now condemned man was laid upon the tree, which was not yet raised. The men laughed as they drove the nails into his wrists. When his arm couldn't reach to the other side. One of the men pulled until his bone popped out of place, and he reached, now nailed, into place. A block was placed at his feet, pushed up slightly so his knees bent. The block was first nailed to the tree, then his feet, laid one over the other, was nailed to the block. Without a thought, the men flipped the tree over. Blood dripped from the man to the ground, now only inches from his face. The nails were bent at the end, so that they wouldn't come out. Again, the tree was flipped over and raised as well. With a thud and a sickening squish, the tree was placed into a hole and kept in place. Kakashi, open this damn door before I kick it in. Kakashi snapped his head around to look at the door he didn't realize he had leaned up against. As quickly as possible, he opened the door and slipped out to rush to the bathroom. It didn't take long for gasps, the sound of people dropping to the floor and crying to reach Kakashi's ears as he ran cold water over his head. He was still trying to get over the thought that somehow he knew. Naruto knew this was going to happen to him. Now the blonde boy hung from the wall in his own room, drained of blood and life. This next line, and only this next line, is in all italics. I'm going to take the sins of this village onto my own and save this place. Once Kakashi regained what little composure he could, he walked out of the room, not yet ready to face the room and horror within. He noticed Sakura lying passed out on the couch, Sasuke sitting in a chair in the kitchen, looking ready to kill something or someone. Tsunade walked out of the room shaky. She turned to look at Kakashi, her eyes questioning. What does he mean? Jiraiya asked from inside the room. Tsunade and Kakashi merely turned their eyes in the direction of his voice, not wanting to look into the room again. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. What the fuck did he mean by that? Jiraiya roared. Wah, wah. Bible passage alert. Bible passage alert. The sky steadily grew darker as a storm rolled in faster than that's the wrong then, by the way, the area could ever recall. Before the first strike of lightning flew across the sky, the condemned man, the broken man, looking up to the sky. He did not look scared. No negative emotions shone in his eyes towards the ones who did this to him. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He called out to the heavens above. His body went lax, his chin fell to his chest, and lightning flashed across the sky. The thunder following, deafening. Earthquakes consumed the area, cracking a sacred shroud in the temple. After the area settled down, the man, now declared dead, was taken down from the tree, is wrapped in burial shrouds and placed within a tomb. Fear for what this man said before his death to his followers, a giant boulder was placed before the entrance, so the dead could not walk again. That night, Anbu took two body down off the wall with as much care as they could. Not the body, two body. T-O body. Surprisingly not T-W-O body. I'm very proud of the author for not making that very easy mistake. The boy was wrapped in white linen, which was impossible to put, since it was impossible to put proper burial clothes on him. His funeral the next day was a closed casket funeral. The casket was then placed in a tomb. Upon the request of Kakashi, he truly believed that in 3 days Naruto would come back. The Kyuubi could heal him, save him. The tomb was sealed with a slab of rock, Naruto's name and information placed upon the door, as well as a poem that the girls made for his memory. Bible verse incoming. 3 days after the man was placed in the tomb, 2 women headed there to anoint his body in oils. Upon nearing the tomb, they noticed the guard there was knocked out. The stone before the tomb was rolled away. Fearing that their lord's body was stolen, they walked into the tomb. As soon as they entered, a brilliant light that lit every corner of the tomb shone from a man sitting upon the rock. Not from a man, from a man. From a man. Sorry, I'm just having a little fun with it. Bed that their lord once laid. His body now gone. The man with the brilliant light spoke to the women, telling them not fear, that their lord was safe and had done as he promised, that he had risen from the shroud of death, breaking its hold on the people. The women, thrilled by this new, not news, new, I suppose when it's only one piece of information, it is a new, rushed from the tomb to tell their friends. All they cried out, "He has risen, he has risen." Not all their way or all the way, all they way. Allow me a moment to sip my coffee as my throat is starting to feel a little raw. You know, a little bit of that AEW raw. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm just gonna pop off the cuff, you know, just hop right out. I am glad that we're just about a full year in. How insane is that? A full fucking year in. That's nuts. Like, I've been consistently doing this a year, and I've been enjoying it, and I want to keep doing it into the future. This is great. This is phenomenal. I'm glad. Alright, let's sip. Chat, in case you need it, or even just want it, if you've been doing something for a long time, even if it's not paying out in the way you want it to, please accept that I am proud of you. It doesn't matter if you've been doing something I might absolutely hate. It doesn't matter if it's something that you yourself are not proud of yet. I am proud of you. because it takes a lot of effort and time to learn how to do something and then keep doing it for as long as you can. You know? One of these days, I want to get a more proper one of these ASMR type microphones. And I want to be able to do this more properly on a level comparable to the content I like to fall asleep to. Because I want to be able to provide people something they can fall asleep to as well. But until then, we'll have to settle with, me talking into the mic all gentle while up close to it so that you can actually hear me. I think the day I get to be able to shove a microphone up against my chest and be able to share my heartbeat with others is going to be an unreal occasion for me, because that's the type of shit I like to fall asleep to. Even if your family isn't proud of you, I'm proud of you. And you should be proud of yourself. Let's get back to the story. Actually, fucking clips. Delete that. I'll just clip that. Later in the morning, or probably after. Alright. The tomb had not been visited in 3 days. Tsunade had placed an onbu to guard the tomb from robbers, vandalism, and others who wished harm against the one lying within. Oh, I'm sorry. Laying within. Sakura and Hinata were walking toward the cemetery. They carried incense and flowers to place around the tomb. It took some time, but they were able to get permission from Tsunade to go near the tomb. As they approached where the guard was, they noticed the man was knocked out. Fearing the worst, they ran to the tomb, only to find the stone slab placed there was cracked and scattered on the ground. Not shattered on the ground, scattered on the ground. Fearing for their comrade's body, they looked into the tomb only to be blinded by a bright light. Not they looked, the looked. The light did little to hide the man that sat on the stone bed, where once their comrade laid. The light also did little to hide the fact that he had fox ears and tails. The man smiled at them before he spoke. Fear not, for your friend is safe. Go and tell your Hokage what you saw, and that he has risen again. The man vanished, and the two girls left the tomb in shock. When it finally sank in, they turned to look at each other. They squealed in delight, then ran to tell Tsunade what they saw. A Bible verse incoming. Two of the man's friends were traveling along a road between two towns. Along the way, they saw a man who looked tired and in need of water. They stopped and offered him some of their drink and some company. When they were about to leave, the man on the road spoke to them and revealed himself to them. They were excited that their lord had risen. He asked the two friends to go to his others' friends and gather them. Not other friends, others' friends. The two men nodded and ran as fast as they could to gather their friends together. Let's see. Oh, not too long. Not too long. We're getting closer to the end. We're getting closer to the end. Don't worry, everyone. Give me a sec to go peep some other stuff. And just peeping some other shit, you know? Surely, during these extremely down, chill streams, you can forgive me getting a little distracted, going off into the weeds a little. Once Shikamaru and Choji were able to get everyone into the Hokage's office, people began speaking. Many of them didn't believe what Shikamaru, Choji, Sakura, and Hinata were saying. As the arguing increased, Neji looked over to a dark corner and noticed someone was there. "Hey you, how dare you enter here without permission? Show yourself and leave," Neji demanded. All attention in the room turned to the figure in the shadows as it stepped out into the light. Blonde hair shined, and blue eyes, now filled with life, smiled back at them. Everyone gasped as Naruto showed himself. Sasuke didn't believe it was him and demanded to see proof. Naruto showed the holes that kunai once stuck out of, as well as the holes the needles made into his feet. Well, made on his feet, not into his feet. My bad, I corrected a mistake. "Do you believe me now, Sasuke?" The Vice, not voice, Vice, spoke. A little coarse C-O-U-R-S-E, not the correct C-O-A-R-S-E. But it was Naruto's voice. People began crying as realization hit them. Before them stood Naruto, their once dead friend. As soon as they crying stopped, not the crying stopped, or their crying stopped, they crying stopped, the questions started. They asked if he was back for good, but he didn't answer. Shikamaru asked how it was possible for him to come back. That was when he repeated what he once said for Kakashi. "Don't worry about what has happened to me. For where I am going, it's so others won't have to suffer. I'm going to take the sins of this village onto my own and save this place." Everyone looked at him in shock. Tsunade demanded an explanation, as did Jiraiya and several others. Naruto only smiled at him. "There is much that I cannot answer, and so little I can," Naruto spoke. "Yet my time is short, and already running out." A smile, a real smile, came to Naruto's lips. "Take care, everyone. I shall come again, not come again, someday." With that, a bright light engulfed Naruto, and they saw him slowly disappear right before their eyes. Again, people began crying and trying to comfort others at the same time. In time, Naruto's tomb was repaired. A message was carved onto the stone entrance this time. Well, a message was carved onto the entrance this time. A new message was carved onto the entrance this time. I'm sorry I bungled it. He died. He rose from the grave, and he shall rise again. Author's note. Oh man, that was hard to write. I took a lot of breaks during this to calm my nerves. Now, you may say, this is a crossover with Passion of the Christ or something like that. Not really. When you think about it, I ran the story of Christ's death alongside Naruto's crucifixion. So it's more of a comparison story than anything. Spelled THEN, that is the wrong then. I'd like to dedicate this story to all those who have written dark fics, apostrophe S, used incorrectly this time, in the past. You inspired me to make this, and I hope it worked as I was hoping to. Open your eyes, and you shall find a world that is blind. Naruto died for my sins. What an idiot. I would not die for him. This is so fucked. Like, this is fucking bizarre. This is wacky. Like, ignoring, you know, the obvious. Well, it's a Mario and a Bible. No, not Mario. Naruto and Bible fanfiction, you moron. Of course it's gonna be weird. Why would you write a Naruto and Bible fanfiction to begin with? Why? I desire context. I refuse to believe this is anything other than a troll, like a troll fic. It's late. It's late. I have extra preparations for tomorrow morning I have to do. So I'm going to say thank you for showing up. If you're on the VOD listening to this, thank you for listening. If you are watching this after the fact, you know, on the VOD on Twitch instead of on YouTube, thank you. Even if you didn't show up live, I'm glad you took the time out of your day to, you know, give my dumbass a listen. I hope that you can have a great week, and that, you know, you can have a wonderful month next month. It was a pretty good summer. Of course, it is 10:56 p.m. It is a decent time for a snack if you're hungry. So if you do need a little something to eat before bed, get yourself something to eat, get yourself something to drink. Make sure that the people you care about know you care about them. And, of course, beat your dick like it owes you money. Have a great night and sleep tight, everybody.